I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on GenoTV.com and Channel 99. Our guest today is Wendy Hudson. Wendy, as most of you know, is the owner and operator of a couple of bookstores in Nantucket, and also with her husband and others involved in Cisco Brewery, the Nantucket Winery, and 888 Distillery.
Yes.
I want to talk about both of them, if that's all right with you, both the bookstore and the brewery operation. Why don't we do that first and get the nasty stuff out of the way?
Oh, nothing's nasty, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. What, you've been in operation out there for how long now?
95.
95.
Randy and I started the brewery.
Almost 18 years.
Yep, really long time.
And it is a long time. And I guess, is it fair to say that the business has sort of, in some ways at least, boomed far beyond what you thought of when you started?
Yeah, definitely fair to say. It's gratifying, but it's every next phase presents another layer of challenges. So, we're thrilled at the the popularity and the support that we have in the community, and that's the good thing. But when you come to something like this, then it becomes tricky.
The issue, of course, is parking, and there have been some proposals and some counter proposals, and now the most recent move, of course, is the building of the split rail fence along the edge of the road, which does have an impact on the parking situation.
Yeah, it may or may not. I mean, we hoped that it wouldn't kind of come to something like that where it was a little bit last minute. We've been talking obviously to the Bartletts for years. One thing, I don't know how many people know, but when I first came to the island, I worked at the farm in '88. So this is like, we all go so far back. I was the farm truck girl for 4 years. I
remember that.
Do you?
No,
yeah. Oh, you don't?
Not.
Oh, yeah.
No.
I think it was 1990 to 94. So, I worked in the fields with the Bartletts. I have so much respect for a family farm, because that was kind of why I came, wanted to work there for a good life.
And sustainability has been one of your
absolutely has
platforms, so to speak. Yeah.
So we just, we've all been together. We were kids together. We were all so close. So we never wanted to get in a position where it seemed like our interests were at odds. I don't feel that they are. I think the farm and the brewery are wonderfully compatible. I think we'll get to that point and everyone will realize that that's the way we feel. With the parking, they absolutely within their right to put that fence there. They were uncomfortable with the customers kind of encroaching so far. We get it, but
isn't there an easement along there?
There is
a 10-foot water easement.
To us, it's just it's a public road. It already has a water easement. It was according the way planning. Andrew Boris and Nat Lowell and all the people, we've been talking about this for months and months. It was sort of a matter of housekeeping to just sort of make it officially public. So that's what the whole, people don't like the word taking. It's just an easement. It's the same thing.
And also the conservation restriction has been withdrawn on that 10-foot strip, has it not?
Yeah, that's totally my understanding. So that was not an actual factor there. The conservation restrictions in our area are the biggest hurdle, and that's what we've been trying to find ways to maybe replicate or creatively, do something about, because everything contiguous to us is very under conservation. We haven't been in a position until the last few years to kind of grow the business enough to support hopefully purchasing property or doing something, creative swap. And that's one reason for us, the economic pressure. You got to keep that engine driving.
That's right.
We can't solve a bigger, make a bigger, better solution if our ability to pay for it is significantly impacted. So there's a lot at risk. But so back to the road. It's a 30-foot layout with the easement. We proposed widening it to sort of make it, to give more space, and also because we really thought the Bartletts wanted a bike path leading up to the farm. It was part of what we had been discussing this winter in a proposal to kind of work with them. That whole issue, it really was a zoning problem too, to try to lease non-contiguous land for parking as a commercial use needs to be contiguous. Zoning, we all know from town meeting, it's huge, and we couldn't solve it for this year. Our understanding was we were going to try to do that again next year. So, we didn't think the fence thing was going to be this year. We knew they wanted to do it, thought we had a little more time. They were fed up, fine. And with that corner thing, part of it was the bike path. So in us, we're thinking, okay, well, sorry about this little roadside, but we'll put in the bike path and make that work. In some subsequent discussions, it seems like that's not a very high priority for them. They don't really. They say they don't really want it. Sort of enlightening Daniel.
Which is a little bit counterintuitive because they talk a lot about the safety on that road.
I know. I feel that way too.
There are people who ride bicycles along there, and even further up past the
Daniel's
corner.
point was that they're saying, like, how many groceries can a person really carry on their bike? It isn't their core business. So I understand that. On the other hand, I do think, there's a lot of great, they have a lot of great takeout food and a lot of, great tourism that just want to see the operation and a lot of big events up there. Hopefully, that'll shake out, but the way that they want it to shake out, that's for them to decide truly, So we kind of scaled back. We're like, all right, well, if you don't want that, we won't worry about this. We'll just work within the existing layout of the road. And we've had, engineers and traffic safety and, a lot of people working on it. And it looks like we might have something that'll work. Long term, we'd still like to solve it. Get a contiguous spot.
Have they informally or otherwise responded to the latest proposal which is essentially to pave the other 10 feet on the other side of the road, right?
No, not 10. It was 2.
Oh, 2?
But there may be a way to do it even with a narrower, like a 9-foot layout, instead of a 10 on the road width. We've been looking at a lot of really interesting sort of smart growth traffic things, and it's sort of like desirable to have it a little narrower to keep people slower. It has a calming effect. In conversations with Andrew and Mike Burns, that they think that's kind of a good thing. So that's sort of the way it's landed. And to the question about the Bartletts, they haven't seen it yet. Truly, it was just email. It's what is today, Wednesday. The deadline's at noon. They kind of just finished this at 11. We'll get that to them, and they can review it. So for the selectmen's meeting next week. So it's all very, happening now, trying to really solve it and get a good solution that everyone can work with.
You mentioned the economic drivers that govern the business, but I think it's fair to say that a lot of people think that the brewery is now an economic driver of Nantucket as well, and a tremendous tourist attraction.
I know that's becoming the case, and it's kind of.
Oh, I think my wife works in an inn, and almost the first thing that many of the people ask is, "How do I get to the brewery?"
Oh, cool.
No, but seriously. So the point being that it has become an engine, as much as Bartlett's is an engine, and certainly it is. But
I think we're so small compared to them. But I don't totally know. It's great, in recent news, one of the headlines we've had in the last several weeks, and, there've been a lot of them, was about, my husband Randy winning, and Dean with their whiskey being voted the best single malt in America. Right. So we're getting like great press and doing really interesting, wonderful things. And we are really proud of that. It's cool. And having all these people that we're employing now it's.
How big a payroll do you have?
I think there's about, in the summer, at least 40 people on island. We got a bunch of salespeople off island all over the place. Young people and young families, and it's such a responsibility to us, and that's what's been a real challenge. We want to get along with the Bartletts, but we couldn't even think about shrinking our operation without it impacting all these other people, and tourism, and as you point out, and we weigh those things, really heavily all the time. Like, is that the right place to do what we're doing? Is that, where do we want it to go? But when you have something that people are...
Do you have a plan at this point? Do you have a business plan which takes you out? Every 5 years or so?
Every few years, it keeps altering. The sands
it should.
Shifting.
The best plans do, but...
But not only that, it's these outside factors, like we think that's kind of one thing. We're trying to do a lot more, we are doing a lot more off-island sales. We moved a lot of production off-island because of things like the wastewater and the impact on the island, shipping, et cetera. So we're doing more of that. Sometimes we get flack for that, but, we'd love to be growing more. So Dean, the idea of getting a little bit more space around us is extremely appealing. So that's what we'd like to see happen. grow more stuff. We're trying to do, Dean last year went into all this tea. He grew all this. You see what's growing around the brewery. It's like
really?
tea, yeah. But the idea is to have something we can be making non-alcoholic, complement an agricultural thing. So that's kind of fun. I've been working on the labels, for these new things. So it always pushes opportunities.
Can you live with the status quo for this summer if you have to? In other words, not necessarily any agreement or approval about changing the road at all, and the fence being there.
I think it would be really chaos, a chaotic situation. We were at traffic safety on Thursday, and the Bartletts have requested no parking on either side, which, if nothing happens, that's what will happen. That they will, well, who knows? It's up to the selectmen. I can't speak for them. I would say that's really not ideal, and that would be really tough. We can't react that quickly. We can't stop the people coming. It's really, if you build it, they will come. They're coming, and that's good. Yeah. But we can't just say, ride your skateboard and ride your bike, and we're trying to say that as much as we can, certainly. But
there's no public transportation out there.
Yeah, it doesn't go far enough. Yeah. It does, the new bike path is going to be great, and that will be really wonderful, and people can safely walk from the shuttle stop now, which wasn't very safe last year and, years past, so that's exciting. And we're going to work to try to bring a little leg up to us anyway, if that'll work.
You have one restaurant that's, I guess, franchised, the one in Logan?
That's just a license agreement.
And do you have others, or is it just that one?
We don't even have that. We don't own it or anything.
No, but the licensing. I mean,
yeah, that's the only one.
That's the only one.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's run by the same people who run all the restaurants in the airport. But it's curious. It's very nice to see it there. It's It's too bad you don't have it in Terminal C, but
I know. Not the same thing.
But anyway, it's good. Let's talk about the book business for a minute. How's that going? It's been just about a year now, right?
Since you took over. It's been a year since April 1st. That was the year. That's something where and I saw Tess speak about kind of her business changing at the hub, and the way
you saw that.
Yeah, and so that was really interesting. So she's cut that back. She sees that with print media. So there's like a couple funny things, and there's one I really can't get a 5-year plan on. It changes so fast. The bookstores, I know Nantucket is too small to have two fighting each other. Two bookstores, it just seemed competing. It seemed like the opportunity was to put it under one roof and push the edges a little more, offer more things. We grew both stores last year. I was really thrilled about. So that's like the bright spot. The summertime is just cranking around here, absolutely. The wintertime, not so much. And I felt strongly that I wanted to give Mitchell's, a full year, open every day, downtown, try to keep, people coming, invested a lot in the events, piece to get people just to come in, and it was successful. A lot of them, like the travel series, we had a lot of people coming. Some were better than others, but better attended than others. But it didn't translate into sales. It doesn't feel like we're having the impact I'd like to have as far as keeping downtown relevant to the year-round population and vibrant. So I'm a little discouraged this winter that so much of my energy was focused, and because it has been all winter, on this parking and this, in the brewery, and I love being back involved with it, but it took a little time that I wanted to do some focus groups with the community and find out a little bit more, what could we be doing, what are we not offering, because I just don't see, I don't know how I'd be able to do that in the wintertime, and it's really hard to know what to give up. But
conceptually, is the idea of having the two stores under one roof, do you think, is it viable in the long term?
Conceptually, it is, for sure. I have definitely bumped up against my own sort of, time limitations. So as far as ordering the books, it works well. I'm not able to, or I didn't do a good enough job kind of getting other people, translating my vision to sort of people that can help. So that's the next step that needs to happen.
It's tough to find people who can do that too. It's it's one thing to have them sitting behind the counter or standing behind the counter,
right, and another to feel sort of a vested or a passion.
The connection.
Yeah, I mean,
you have that ability.
we've got some
Mimi Beeman
absolutely
had
great
that
people.
ability. You have some
Yeah.
good people, but sort of taking them to a level.
know.
You can't be everywhere at once.
I know, and there's a lot of different ways that I'd like to see that kind of evolve. So, you know, but you know, then we come up against sort of, you know, I was looking into bringing some experienced book people, you know, for like a managerial role. But then the housing is just too tricky, and you know, the economics of it are just really a challenge to, you know, to get people what they're worth and what
Right.
you know what it takes to live here. So.
Maybe, you know, maybe you and other businesses should take a leaf from what the FAA did out at the airport a few years ago and really groom some local people as you know, coming out of high school and college.
Yep. I was thinking that this morning, pondering, you know, the Merchants Association and like a role that we could take, you know, kind of, or my daughter who's 15, and she was asking me, how do you get a job? You know, and I'm like, well, you know, you do these things, but I thought, oh, there's an opportunity to sort of provide some training and some hospitality. And, you know, when I was on the chamber board, we talked a lot about that, about making people really ambassadors for Nantucket. And, you know, it's all relevant, you know.
That's right.
It kind of.
It is. Running a business here is a challenge.
You
No
think?
question about that.
Yeah.
But I think you do very well. And thank you for coming and sharing your
Absolutely.
precious time with us and,
Oh, thank
and
you.
telling us keeping us up to date on what's going on. Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks, Dan.